Hey, it's Bill Satry here. And this is a special show that I'm doing. This is really for people in the St. George area that are frustrated when they go to look to maybe build a house. I have with me Jeff Staples, who's a real estate agent who specializes in new construction homes in the St. George area. Now, when you think of St. George, don't think of the town. Think of a 50-mile radius or so, or even further outside of St. George. Now, the reason I have Jeff on this YouTube video, this show, is I've bought property from him and his group. I found a beautiful area that I've kept a secret up till now, and I'm going to have Jeff explain who he is. And it took me 10 years to find this area, the secret neighborhood. And I'll have Jeff explain how he came about finding it, how he got into real estate, and how you could be one of the last 2 or 3 that could build in that neighborhood. So Jeff, tell me a little bit about yourself. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill. I'm excited to be on with you today. I'm born and raised here in southern Utah, so I've moved around quite a bit in my early 20s, but I'm back and I'm happy to be here. I grew up underneath Zion National Park on about a 40-acre ranch, taking care of all sorts of livestock, cows, chickens, pigs, turkeys, fish, and a pond, you name it. And learned from an early age a hard work ethic, and also had the luxury of driving around town all the time with my father, who was in the construction trade, and learning about different areas in southern Utah, learning about values, and it has led me to a love of homes and a hard work ethic that combined with that. And here we are today, selling houses and focusing on new construction.
This guy has lived, born and raised, and I'm going to talk up the Zion Park area. It's probably the most misunderstood piece of real estate in the United States. Do you have any idea how many people go through to visit Zion Park? It's in the millions, and I'm thinking it's like 5 or 6 million. I might be too high, but
you're correct. The last census, now that you've got me and we're recording, I'm going to goof it up, so I'm not going to quote a number, but I believe we're over 10 million in a year that visit the park. We're really close to that. I know that. Go ahead.
No, it's people from around the world come to this park. It's not like, oh, the local's going to take a day. That too, but it's a world destination for anybody that lives on this planet, I would think.
Correct. It is.
So Jeff finds this spot along the Virgin River on the mouth of where Zion Park is. And I'm going to say from a crow's flies, your properties there from the entrance of Zion Park can't be more than 15 miles. Am I right? Somewhere around that neighborhood?
Yep. As far as a distance, I probably would be pulling your leg if I gave you a distance. As far as a drive time, you're under 12 minutes to the gates of the park.
Okay. 12 minutes from one of the most beautiful scenic, some of the hikes there, like Angel's Landing, which I've done, is rated one of the top hikes in the world.
Right.
This place is just absolutely, positively one of the best places you could ever surrender to live, I think, in the United States. Jeff has found this neighborhood, and he's a major part of the development there. So let's talk about this renovate. I think I'm saying it right.
Yep.
Depending if you want to use a Spanish accent or not. And tell me a little bit about this place that's just part of heaven.
It is. It really is part of heaven. So as you're going up SR9 that takes you to Zion National Park, the first town that you come to once you have come up the hill, is what the locals call it, is Virgin, Utah. And at the end, near the end of Virgin, which is an old town that was primarily a farming community and still is a brand new, big, beautiful Marriott right off this SR9.
Believe it or not, there's a Marriott in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
It's a new one. It's like a Spring Hill. It's not a Spring Hill Suites, but it's like one of the Marriott properties. Swimming pool. They're doubling the size of it, but it's right there in Virgin.
Right. So you drive past this beautiful new Marriott. You turn right at the Marriott, and there's nothing else right there. And behind it, you cross a big, gorgeous custom bridge that you go literally over the Virgin River that's coming through Zion National Park. And as you do that, you wrap a corner, and the only subdivision on that side of the river is our subdivision, Riodesion. This subdivision was developed in the early 2000s by some visionaries at the time, and they did a fantastic job. The bridge is beautiful. The layout of the lots is fantastic. Almost every lot in there has a great view of the park and other surrounding mountains. What happened was they, in the crash, got caught up in a few things and unfortunately lost the second and third phase of this development to the bank. So my group, fourth quarter of 2020, came in and purchased it, and that wasn't just at a whim. The two in the group watched it for years and years and years. Loved the development, loved it, and were struggling with the price that the bank wanted. And as the market has grown and Southern Utah has become a nationally recognized gem, and we're having people moving in from all across the nation, they decided now's the time. And it has just been unbelievable. So what happened was they came in and said, Jeff, we want to sell these lots. After, we went over the project together. And being that they were a very different animal than anything in the town of Virgin that I'd ever seen, the question came on, are we going to be able to sell these and how fast? Just because normally in real estate, you say, hey, if the neighbor did this, I can do this. That hadn't happened in the town of Virgin. And especially something so secluded and beautiful like this one. And I believe within my first 24 hours of them saying, hey, here is a price in which we'll sell these lots, but we don't want them going on the multiple listing service. Just talk amongst a few agents or builders to test the water. I had requested, in the first 24 hours, I had 32 reservations requested.
Whoa. Out of how many lots?
Out of 47.
So you had almost 3/4 of them gone within a couple of days.
Yep. And, we couldn't, we had to wait and clear a few things with the city until we could actually sell them. But we had those reservations, and we, being that it's Southern Utah and some good old boy mentality, as we'd say, we had handshake deals on 32 of them, and very few actually ended up falling out. We ended up selling them almost all the way out, and in a matter of 2 months, we sold everything that we had on the market, with the exception of about 3 or 4 river lots that are spectacular lots that we had to do extra dirt work on, and we didn't list them until late in the game. And that's kind of what we have left now is a few of these river lots and 2-story lots. So the original developers were really wise, and they set some height restrictions in the subdivision to not have certain people miss their view of the Kolob mountain range or Zion or Pine Valley Mountain if you're facing a certain way. And what this caused is, out of our 47, I believe only 6 of those could be 2-story lots. And the reason is that with the lay of the land, they line a mesa. It allows them to have no backyard neighbors, so total and complete privacy. And also they're not blocking the view of any of those other homes.
Which is fantastic, because the worst thing in the world is when you're building a house and you get it all done and the guy behind you decides to go up 3 stories. So all you're doing is looking into his living room. And a lot of St. George, I hate to say it, but a lot of St. George is that way, where there's no backyard, or you're looking at a big boulders that are put in a wall that's made out of, and that's your backyard. And you may have 10 feet. And there's really nothing to do, nothing to put in there but a lawn chair and look at a rock wall. This subdivision does not have one bad lot in it that I can find. And the lot that I have has a view of the Kolob Mountains, the range behind me as well. And they're all half acres. I mean, they're maybe a few feet short of half acres, but everything out there is at least a half acre, more or less. Is that correct?
You're exactly right. And again, credit to those original developers. They and the group that we went in on, they were wise in not changing certain things, and they could have, to try to become more lucrative. But the setbacks between the homes in there are 15 feet on each side. So yeah, there's these huge lots that are half acres, but no matter how big of a house you want to put on there, that gives a 30-foot gap in between every home. And so if your home is placed in such a way that you're going to sprawl 2 lots behind you, your view is still not going to be impeded at all, even though it's still 1 story, which shouldn't wipe it out anyway. But you're going to have 30 feet at minimum to look through and have that private space to look at the beautiful scenery.
And I have a slope on my lot, and the lots around me, it's about a 10 or 12-foot slope. So if they'll allow me to make a basement out of that, I can have a main house that looks above everybody else's. So it's thought out well. They just put in all the roads. They've all paved.
This week,
water in there. You have the electricity's all underground. There's 1 power line up. I think they're going to move, but everything's all done. You could literally purchase a property from Jeff, get the planning commission only is open a couple days a week in Virgin, but you get your plans approved. It's not on a stack of 1,000 other plans waiting to get done. The impact fees, nobody talks about impact fees, but the impact fees in Virgin, I understand, are some of the lowest in the state, because there's other cities that are higher. Is that correct? And Virgin is quite reasonable on impact fees. And so when you go to build, there isn't all these surprises that come along, where you've got to spend on watering. They're all there, but they haven't yet caught up with St. George in terms of being really pricey. I guess in some places in St. George you could spend up to $40,000 on impact fees, 35 to 40.
It's true. Between your permit and impact fees, a price like that is not unheard of at all. Another wonderful thing with the town of Virgin, Bill, is that those impact fees, a lot of them, not all of them, but in the rest of southern Utah, have to be paid at the time of purchase of the lot. Virgin doesn't make you pay that until you go to get a building permit.
Nice. So if you have to wait a few months, and really that community will probably, it's hard to tell, but I would say there's 4, 5, 6 houses out there right now. It's not like this is empty, and the houses that are there now are gorgeous. I would have to say half of them are over $1 million. The other half, there's probably one out there that's 600,000. But you could actually stand there, build a house, and not have a neighbor right next to you, have the view of a lifetime. You got your water, your electricity, you put in a septic tank, which is no big deal. And you can walk down to the Virgin River. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, the master plan is wonderful. There's a couple access points right down to the river from the subdivision that is common ground. So anyone within that HOA can walk right on down there, and kids, grandkids, take them down to the river and enjoy the peace and the noise of that river running through your own subdivision is unbelievable.
So I heard one of the locals told me that they can take an inner tube in the summer, get on one side of the subdivision and ride that river all the way around to the other side and be in the same subdivision and have this. The river kind of does a horseshoe around the subdivision. Now, here's what's cool. You really can't find property on the Virgin River. If you look, I don't think you'll find one property listed anywhere. And if you do, it'll be in the millions of dollars because it'll come with, several acres. The ones I know in Rockville, I think there's one that's 7 acres with a house, and it's just barely under $1 million. So, and it's built in a hill, and you've got some acreage there, but it's rare to find something on the Virgin River. So tell me the plans. I know that you have a lot there that you could do kind of a walkout basement and have the thing swimming pool and be right on the Virgin River. Is that correct?
You're correct. So there, on our river lots, there's a building pad, and then there is a drop off is kind of an aggressive term, but a descent that the majority of your land then runs you literally up to about 15 feet to the river on most of these lots. They're cut differently, but the wonderful thing is you can have your home up on this pad, have a pool. I know that there's one person there very excited that they're building a home, a pool that's the infinity type pool that runs over the edge, and they get to look down on their land right toward the Virgin River, hear the river running while they're sitting in their pool that runs over and looking at a mountain range.
I think it's incredible because I don't want to talk about prices because this could go on for several years and everybody laugh at us looking at this at 2014, or 2024. But honestly, if you built the right house on that one pad, it would be, with the swimming pool, you did it right, there would be no question that house would be worth a lot more by the time you're done versus when you start. Is that correct?
I think that's the case, Bill, honestly, on any lot in the subdivision. I think you did very well on the one you chose. And it's going to be almost impossible to replace this subdivision. The benefit and blessing that we had was that these original developers got it approved in the early 2000s before there was so much as far as red tape about taking a community over the Virgin River that I don't know that's going to be replaced. And when something can't be replaced, the value is that much greater.
I can only think of Grafton, the town that's a ghost town.
Sure.
Summit and Rockville, and if you found anything there, you're over $1 million. And
you're
if
correct.
you go into Springdale, or is it Springville? Springdale, right?
Springdale.
You'll be $2 or $3 million trying to find a piece of property near the Virgin River.
You're correct. And also what we have going for us is, as far as keeping that in such a desirable and unique state, is that the town of Rockville, which Grafton is within, they have a moratorium on building. They don't have any more water. I don't know whether or not they could get it, and they just don't want more building. That's kind of a speculation. But nonetheless, you're not going to have a new subdivision in Grafton. And then in Springdale, as you said, anything that is in the proximity of the river that's left is going to be an unbelievable price.
I think you're I think you're right. And I don't want to scare any viewers and think they got to spend $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. There's actually homes going in that subdivision. I would have to say it would be, I don't want to guess, but I would say on the very low end, 750. You could probably
Yeah.
squeeze by and put one. The building code is 2,200 square feet, I think is the footprint that you have to build.
I think it's just shy of 2,300. You're right.
23. So 23 at $300, let's say a square foot, you know, you're probably going to be 700,000 or so, but I don't know anything anywhere you're going to build that's not $700,000 in St. George, unless you're building a condo
Sure.
or something really tiny. And then you've got neighbors. So it's out there, but it's really not out there. To go to the grocery store at the end of the light where the road ends, and I'm trying to think, we're in Laverkin, is
Yes.
really only less than 10 minutes away. Is that correct? A major grocery store is right at the end of the road. There's a big gas station there as well. So you enter in the town of Laverkin and you have all the resources you would need. And I'm thinking 10 minutes away at the most.
You're correct. An additional 7 minutes away, there's an IHC building, which for those who are from out of town, Intermountain Healthcare. They're our biggest healthcare provider in southern Utah. So it's not out in the boonies like it used to be in the town of Virgin or Rockville or Springdale. The infrastructure is caught up and you're a short drive. The beautiful thing is, especially on this part of the county, that thing called traffic doesn't exist yet. Or I don't know if the growth will allow it to exist, but I have clients from California all the time that I say, well, you know, just be aware that to the doctor's office from here, you're going to be 20, 25 minutes, depending on what provider you see. And they look at me like, is that a big deal? And say, well, we sit in traffic an hour to go see these providers, and it's an eye opener. It's a great thing we take for granted here.
And there's concerts. The town of Springdale has concerts. They have this, I don't want to call it a stadium, but an outdoor
amphitheater
that has great concerts in the summer, and you're 15 minutes away from that.
Yep. The nightlife in Springdale is unbelievable too. Some of the best restaurants ever.
World-class restaurants. You're feeding the world there. So there's Mexican food, there's Italian, there's Western. In fact, in Virgin, I just discovered there's 3 or 4 restaurants in Virgin.
Yes.
One of them, the porch, or it's that real bright
balcony one.
Color. The balcony.
Yes.
Great restaurant, great food. You can eat outside, you can eat indoors. There's a great bar there. Across the street, there's a restaurant, and then down the road, there's this Wild West type of restaurant and place, the event center that you can go eat at. So you're not without food there. And I would have to think with the Marriott there and how busy it's getting, gas station and probably a convenience store is not too far away.
Agreed.
I think that's probably going to come, and care if it does or not. I just assume keep it as simple as possible. So I'm a viewer and I'm saying, okay, I'm in. How does this work, Jeff? How does somebody contact you, and how do you work through a builder with them? I understand that you're one of the few agents that just don't sell and dump to a builder. You'll actually work through the building process. So if I live in California and I'm trying to build something, you've got somebody on this making sure that the build job goes as planned. Is that correct?
That is correct. So as far as buying a lot, it's a super simple process. And although we have the answers to any question you can have, especially in this development, we highly encourage a due diligence period for any buyer where they can have any question that they want answered and make sure that they're 100% comfortable. Usually this time period is about a 2-week period that they reserve a lot with a contract with some earnest money on that lot. And then they get 2 weeks that they can call the city, that they can make sure that the soils are up to par, all of these things. And we have our own checklist as an agent that we're going to encourage everyone to go through, and we help with that as well. When it comes to due diligence, we don't we give a checklist, like I said, and we'll be a resource, but we don't do everything for the client for the fact of we don't want a conflict of interest. We want them to know firsthand that what they're getting is what they're getting, and that they're happy with that. We haven't had anyone unhappy with a single lot in there, and so the technique has worked very well thus far. After that, it's go time. They've got on standard is another 2 weeks to close on the lot, so 30 days total. This allows time for financing, or for those that are doing stock accounts that they're pulling from. Any of that gives them time to do so in a healthy manner. And then after that, the building process, you're right, we pride ourselves in a different approach than most agents. The conflict that I got to see as a young man with builders, that I met with every big builder in southern Utah through my father as a kid, and all growing up. My dad did home theaters and automation. And so for all these pristine builders back in the early 2000s, when having a home theater, not just a big screen like we do now on the wall, was a thing, I met them all and knew them on a first name basis, and I still do and have great relationships. But I remember specifically at the Parade of Homes, which is a special event that happens in the first quarter of the year here in southern Utah, that the builders kind of show off their art of homes. I remember going to those with my dad, and the builder saying a couple 4-letter words at times about the real estate agent that came in, made a bunch of money, dumped the client, and then walked away. That stuck on my shoulder, and I thought, how can I make that relationship better? And then with the amount of relocation buyers coming in is where it culminated our system and how we take care of people. And what that looks like, Bill, is simple. A lot of people have never built a home from the ground up. It can be a scary process, like anything. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be scary. And with such a big commitment, it can add even more pressure. And so what we do for them is step one, or A to Z, we're taking care of them. So after, from the time of the lot acquisition to helping them get in alignment with an architect, with the builder, or choosing a preset plan that maybe a builder or an architect have, we go through all of that with them. And then the thing that we do after that really is helpful in a couple regards is, if you're in California, if you're in Salt Lake, if you're in Canada, wherever you're at, we jump on a FaceTime, on a Zoom, whatever service the client wants, we'll accommodate to. And we're giving them updates on their home. Everyone, when they build a home, if they live anywhere nearby, is driving there as often as they can in the evenings after work to check on their house.
Right.
Now, I'm never going to promise a client that I'm going to do that for them. I don't want to be unrealistic. But a weekly update on, hey, this is what we saw, or even a bi-monthly update, gives people such a breath of fresh air that we walk through, send them a little video, send them a picture of the home. Hey, we saw that the HVAC is going in. Hey, the electrical looks great, the drywall, and they get to see and be a part of the process and know that things are happening on their behalf. Then probably the two most crucial things that we do take place. And I don't want to overstate by any means my ability as a real estate agent. It's pretty limited, but we get to make sure that timelines are looking correct for our buyers. And with the education and knowledge that we have, this is very important. I'll give you a scenario. I have a client that we closed on a home last week that the home was already being built. They didn't build it custom. It was already being built and they bought it from the builder. They put it under contract. They saw that, like everyone else right now, interest rates are fantastic. They locked a rate. Well, there's only a certain window once you lock a rate to actually close on a property. And if you don't, the financial institution 9 times out of 10 is going to charge you an extension fee if they'll let you extend. And if they don't, you're subject to whatever rates change to. And in this volatile market, even though we're in wonderful, wonderful rate territory, that can make a pretty healthy change on your payment. So we went to the builder and said, hey, Mr. Builder, they're going to have to relock the rate if we don't close in time. And the builder is a great builder, but like a lot of people right now, because of the COVID shutdowns we had, getting certain materials has been a very big challenge for them. And he said, I'm doing everything I can, pushing as many buttons as I can, cracking the whip, and I'm not going to have this done in time. I'll have it ready for a certificate of occupancy so that the county will say, yes, this is habitable, go ahead and close, but I won't have it to a point where we've agreed upon in the contract of these added things to the home. I just won't have it done in time, and I'm sorry. So as a builder, they're doing their very best. The client never, this client has never, actually they built one home previously. Most people don't, right? The client wasn't aware that we could do something that gave them some great security, that the builder was going to be financially motivated to get this house done after the closing, and they could still lock their rate. What we did was a simple agreement. The title company held back a certain amount of funds to the builder. He has a 2-week period to finish those items, or these people at their choice can take the money or continue with him to finish those things. And we were able to do that, and they kept their rate. They weren't charged an extension fee. We have a punch list that I, as the agent, it is my job, even though the home is closed, I've been paid. It's my job to continue to communicate with the builder and help arrange these things. Obviously, for scheduling matters, for them to leave their house for a subcontractor to come in, I it's best to have them in touch one-on-one. But
sure,
those are the type of things that we do that really protect people. The other thing is the way that you write the contract. Builders right now have had a different challenge than they've ever had before. With the raise in cost of materials, there's a certain builder in town that had, he's more of a production builder, over 100 homes being built at one time, and he took contracts on all of them even before they were out of the ground. And this lumber hike took place, and from what I understand, I don't have access to their financials, that the raise in lumber would have bankrupted this builder. This builder wasn't, gotta be careful with my words. From what I understand, this builder did not have a clause in their contract that allowed for inflation. And that's a human nature type thing of, if I tell you I'm going to give you this for this, I'm going to do it.
right.
Well, unfortunately, it's out of his control what happens with lumber. And then to turn around to 100 people and say, hey, your lumber package actually went up $30,000, caused some really big heartache and some really big headaches. So us as the agents, we cannot dictate what some builders will or won't accept as a contract, but we can make our clients fully aware of, hey, this could happen, here's the percentage. And if we have the ability to write the contract, which we ultimately always have the ability to accept or not, we get to protect them in the proper way and give them reasonable expectations that we're seeing day in and day out of, hey, just be aware this could happen. And if it does, here's where it stops. And we found that if you give those expectations and there's not a surprise involved, it usually goes okay versus something scary, a scary phone call at the end.
Well, you really actually have gone through the worst case scenarios that could happen.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
I really, who knows, right? But the price of lumber, it's certainly not the forests getting more money. The people that are cutting the lumber aren't getting really more money. It's somewhere in between. And I think that slowed a lot of people's thought process, including me, down a little bit, because I'm thinking maybe I need to wait a year till the price of lumber comes down. Well, the price of lumber can still come down during your build, and you could benefit from that. The price of a lot, I'm going to be flipping here for a minute because it's real funny. Probably could have bought that lot a month earlier and paid less money for it. So what you bought a lot for today versus next year, and you had a lumber increase again, really takes care of the inflation on the lot you'd have to buy. Right now, I went through a few subdivisions that are going on in Hurricane, and the lady had showed me the old price sheet from a year and a half ago.
Oh no.
Houses, what's that?
I said, oh no.
It was 350. Now there's 550, right? For kind of the same home. It's a little bigger, but man, but if you would have built that and agreed at 350 and had a $440,000 lumber increase, so what? You still 100, 150 less than what you'd had to buy the house today. So
Sure.
If you're trying to hedge inflation and you're trying to buy something that at the end of the day, if you're going to have from $500,000 to $1 million into it, why not have what you want? Why not have the faucets and the sinks and the kitchens and the fridge, the air conditioning that can really handle the house, the garage being more than 2-car, being 3 or even 4-car garage, having the swimming pool of your choice rather than some tiny pool that was put in there for looks. Get what you want and allow inflation. And everything that I read from the stock market onto the economy is we're looking at massive inflation. And your only hedge that I know of, unless you bought Bitcoin or Dogecoin in the beginning, right? Or if you bought Ethereum 5 years ago, like my daughter, your only hedge is to go out and buy some property and get your foot in the ground and say, okay, I might have paid a lot for this lot, but it's what I want. It's where I want. It's in an area where if I had to sell it in a heartbeat, not only am I going to get my money back, but I'm going to get more money than if I stuck it in the stock market right now. So I'm just thinking out loud, right? This is not a guarantee, or I'm not an agent. I'm just here interviewing because I'm in the same boat as everybody else, these viewers. If you found the right agent, you found the right property, and you found somebody that's willing to go through the building process, and I've built houses and I know how complex it can be to have an advocate that could go out and film it once every other week or something to show you the progress and keep everybody on site. I think that's better than buying at prices 6 months ago. From the fact that the real estate is in these certain areas is only going to go crazy. And if you don't think it's crazy, drive 15 minutes into Springdale and look up what a condo is at $500,000, or look up what a regular house is at $2 million, and know you're the only neighborhood that's outside of those neighborhoods that are going in. The mountains go like this. It goes from a prairie, kind of, when you get into Laverkin, down to this real narrow channel and really up to a river. So there's nowhere to go. You can't really build on top of the houses. You can go to Apple Valley, be about the only other thing you could possibly do, and wait for a road to come over to Zion. But other than that, this is probably one of the areas where you could build a dream home and not regret the process. And you're one of the few agents that I found that'll stick with you through that process to ensure that you're going to come out successful.
Well, I want to touch base on one thing that you said, Bill, and it's actually those exact same clients that I gave the scenario on. Yes, we had to get creative at the end to make sure that everything was done properly and take care of them. That being said, along with the process, and they were understanding folks to where these builders are with materials, but they only had this home under contract, I believe, for 2.5 months before it was finished. They put this home under contract at $525,000, and it appraised at $580,000.
Wow. So they had $60,000 to $70,000 worth of equity before they even moved in.
Yes, and
20%
that
of the price of the house.
in that short of amount of time. And I'm not promising that to every client. I couldn't if I wanted to, but that is something amazing we're seeing right now, especially with new construction, is that if you're willing to wait a little bit and say, hey, I want to build this home, or hey, I want to take on this home that's being built as a spec home, and watch that construction take place, exactly what you said. You get the benefit of having everything brand new, having everything under warranty for a certain amount of time, and also choosing what you get for your price. And then you're in a massive equity position. I have some folks that built, and within 6 months of building, they put 5.5% down, I believe, and they bought a new construction home before it was finished, 5.5% down, a conventional loan. Within 6 months, they went to their financial institution and said, hey, we would like our mortgage insurance removed because we now have 20% equity.
Wow. So within a year, which takes sometimes people several years to get their mortgage and lots of payments, you can do it on the inflation and the appreciation of the house.
Yes.
And remember, we're not guaranteed, he's not guaranteed, Jeff's not saying, hey, this is going to happen. I'll give you an example, worst case scenario that worked out. I lived in a neighborhood in Draper where 2008 hit. They were all $1 million homes and huge homes. And people started to evacuate, and just leave them because they were too expensive. A couple came in and bought a piece of property during 2009. And I'm thinking, who would buy a piece of property 2009 when there's houses empty? And they actually went forward and built a house. I'm sitting there thinking, how nutty would that be when you can walk into something, for less money than you can build it? Turns out they built what they want. They got every builder or every supplier to show up to get whatever they wanted. They got it at a good price. They closed in, the house was worth more than of course they built it for. And now they look back and said, wow, I got what I wanted, bought a lot for very inexpensive. So you really can't go too wrong with buying real estate. If you look at past performance in the state of Utah, for the last 20 years, we've done very well in terms of constantly moving north of the needle in most years. 2008, 9, 10, everything moved real slow, but it all came back. And right now there's a shortage of building. There's a shortage of homes, obviously, in the state of Utah, with Californians and a lot of other people from other states that I see are all moving into Utah. So I think your best hedge, if you bought a used home, and I know you don't call it used home, but an existing home, and you closed on it today and you paid $600,000 for it, you're going to be lucky it appraises for $600,000. You know what I mean? The buyer could have been at $250 to $310 a square foot, and you may have to come up with some extra money if you're trying to get a 20% down. An appraiser may have a bad day and say, I really think that's worth $560. So you're out to 40 because there's 4 people behind you with cash offers. With a build, you're in control, and you have to put less money down on a new build than you do on a pre-existing home. So you really have all the benefits. You need the patience for probably 8 months to 12 months to do a build. But I'm looking at real estate, the listings today. You can look at this today. Somebody listed a house. It's really reasonable. It's like 460. It won't say where it is. It's just somewhere in St. George. And the owner wants to be in the house to the end of the year. So if you bought the house, you can't touch the house, go in it, look at it, because the owner wants to be occupied till October and November of the year. So what's the difference? If you got to have somebody else live in your house because they feel like it, might as well be building something. And by the way, they're not paying you any rent. They've clued into the fact that the right buyer will just let them live there for 6 months. You know what I mean? Before you pay $1,500, $2,000. This guy's like, no, I'm going to just live here till October, and October 31st, I'll move out and you can have your house. So what's the difference? If the person's going to live in the house for 3 to 4 months or 6 months, and you got to sit there and make a payment on it and insurance and everything else, plus you may knock a hole in the wall or whatever may go wrong, kind of it's your responsibility. So might as well build what you want. That's what I wanted to say, is that even bad times, people are making money or at least breaking even. And the fact that people are staying in their homes after they close, why buy something pre-owned?
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Bill. And to expand on that last thought, I have a lot of people right now. Funny enough, it's the same conversation that I was hearing 4 years ago of, hey, we're at the peak of the market. It doesn't make sense to buy right now. Well, the question becomes, not only do we not know when that peak is or what it will look like, but does it truly affect you if you're staying in the home? No, it doesn't. Your payment doesn't all of a sudden magically change. Your payment is locked where it's at, unless you get a variable rate mortgage, which that's not really happening as much nowadays. Your payment's the same. And we know that historically, year over year nationally, real estate goes up by 5%. So if we do see a dip, for how long and how big is the question. And it's going to be a while before we have inventory to catch up to that. So the inflation that we see until that point very well can offset any drop that we do see. And the biggest thing I want to hit on with that is exactly what you said. If there's the possibility of being there 5 to 10 years, why not get what you like? If you're going to be in it, like it.
I'm going over a $500,000 house that I want to buy while I'm waiting for one to be built. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, where am I going to park the other 2 cars? Where am I going to put my motorcycle? Where am I going to, I can't fit in it. It's 2,000 square feet. Or I can build 3,400 square feet or 4,000 square feet and just have what I want. Put that extra, to build a 4-car garage versus a 2-car garage over the period of your lifetime, you're really not paying much for those extra 2 stalls. You know what I mean? Versus renting or putting your stuff in storage. There's so much that we could talk about. I think we'll probably do another session maybe later on.
Sure.
Tell me how people, if they want to see your website or if they need to call you, can they call you directly? And can they go to a website and study out what's going on out there?
Yes, absolutely. The website, Bill, I will give you, and you can maybe share a link if that's okay.
Sure.
But the best thing to do with me is calling my cell phone. I'm a family man, so I do take care of my family in the evenings. But other than that, I am answering my phone early in the morning, and if I'm not taking care of my kids, I'm answering it too. And my number is a 435 local area code, so it's 435-619-0189. And I also text, and I am easy going. So if I'm awake and I'm not taking care of my babies, I'm answering a text or a phone call.
Excellent. So there you have it. You've got, if you're trying to enter in the town of St. George and you're trying to look for the spot, how many how many lots do you think realistically you have available left out there that you can work with people on?
I actually think that I've got about 5. A couple aren't on market yet that some folks have expressed interest. They bought in really early with the hope of building either a spec home or possibly sitting on it for a few years. And I've already seen that the price is at a place where they'd like to sell. So I think I've got 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Wow. So, and a price range, any idea what people are thinking?
Yeah.
Where could it possibly start and where would it end?
Price range, I believe you're going to be in the low 200s, so maybe a 220, 230 price range. And that's for a half an acre with no backyard neighbors. And then for the acre plus, that's the acre plus lots that are on the river. We've got one starting at 279 currently, and then all the way up to 330 for some of those. Those prices change all the time. So if you watch this YouTube video, don't quote me on it. But as of today, the 11th of May, that's where we're at.
And again, I'm going to stress, we haven't provided any warranties here or any guarantees. You need to seek out your own research like I've done and do your own research. I've found that if you could buy a lot for under 300,000, it's on the Virgin River and it's more than a half acre, you're doing good. Some of these lots that you have are 2 acres. Is that correct? The one on the river is pretty close.
I think we just sold our last 2 acre, but we've got some well over an acre that are in the early 300s that are fantastic. Look right at Zion National Park.
If you don't know what an acre is, come out and walk these lots. You're going to see that you won't believe how big an acre is, or even a half acre. I'm so happy with a half acre because right now I got 1/3 of an acre and it's not bad, but I do have a neighbor next door and one next to me, and my RV touches their property. It's all that, right? This won't happen there. Make sure you get a hold of Jeff, even if you're thinking about it and you're maybe want to do an existing home, contact Jeff. He's got lots of people and lots of connections. Remember, he's from the area. He knows what's good, bad, or indifferent. St. George is very different. There's areas in St. George that you need somebody like him with experience, because you may get yourself into a young community with ATVs running up and down the road, or you may get yourself in with a bunch of seniors like me. We're not a lot of fun. We just kind of hang out on our porch, right? So you want to make sure somebody that knows the area can talk to you. So Jeff, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate your sharing. I give my clients and people that are watching this the recommendation to get a hold of you and learn more.
Thank you, Bill. It's been a privilege. I hope we get to do this again.
Perfect. We'll see you soon.
Awesome.